Mark McKinney is going to join us in about 15 minutes. Good people. Mark McKinney of the Crozet Community Advisory Committee. A lot we're going to cover with Mark on today's show, with questions already rolling in, including the hot topic that's on the tip of many tongues in Crozet. Should Crozet become and evolve into a town? We'll give you an update on the Downtown Crozet project. This question was offered by a proud Crozetian this morning. He said that he thinks the Board of Supervisors should include a dedicated member strictly to Crozet, as opposed to Crozet being a part of that Whitehall district that Ann Malik oversees. We'll bring that up with Mark. We'll discuss workforce housing with Mark, road infrastructure concerns in Crozet with Mark, and overpopulation of our schools in Crozet with Mark McKinney. Give the show, guys, a like and a share on every social media platform you're watching upon, any of them you're watching it upon. If you have questions for Mark, put the questions in the feed, and we will relay those questions live on air. Johnny Ornalis, the owner of Guadalajara, JPA, and El Mariachi, good afternoon. And thank you for tuning into the program, Johnny. Hello, Crozet Gazette. Thank you for tuning into the program. We very much enjoy your content, Crozet Gazette. If you have any questions for Mark, please put it in the feed. Got folks at CBS 19 on the broadcast today. Hello, CBS 19, and welcome to the show. Give it a like and a share anywhere you guys are watching. Mariah, hello. I just put two and two together that Mark is your brother. Small world, certainly in this area. Michael Hargraves, welcome to the broadcast. Eileen McGregor, welcome to the broadcast. Kevin Long, welcome to the show. Cindy, welcome to the broadcast. Cindy Clark, we love when you watch the program. A lot we're going to cover, guys. I have a feeling you're going to learn quite a bit on the Monday edition of the I Love CVille show. I'm going to want to get a couple items out of the notebook first, including Albemarle County High School mandating vaccinations for student athletes, some questions I have from that, and we'll dot the I's and cross the T's on this UVA Wake Forest game from Friday evening that left many of us in disappointment. We'll take a look at the Thursday matchup with UVA football against Miami. Thursday night prime time for the Wahoos. This is their third nationally televised game, 3 weeks in a row. We hope the showing it'll be a little bit better on Thursday against the Miami Hurricanes. Judah Wickhauer, I'm feeling good, my friend. We are in your hands. We can start the show when you are ready, sir. Good Monday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. We are live in Charlottesville, across Crozet, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille network. Live on every social media platform known to mankind. You, the viewer and the listener, can offer perspective on today's show, ask questions, change the pace and tempo of the program with your perspective by leaving your thoughts in the comment section on any of the social media platforms you're watching upon. I will read those comments on air on the Monday edition of the I Love CVille show. It's presented by Skooma Boutique Dispensary. Skooma Boutique Dispensary is located on the downtown mall next to Rapture. David and his team at Skooma Boutique Dispensary have certificates of analyses for everything in the store. We also want to give a plug to Ting Fiber Internet, being the internet and the power behind the I Love CVille network. We love Ting Fiber Internet here at the I Love CVille show. A lot I want to cover today. Mark McKinney is our guest. Mark McKinney is a smart individual. I first got to know Mark through the shows we do on this network. The gentleman constantly was offering amazing and fascinating and thought-provoking perspective and comments. Reached out to him, I want to say, within the last 6 months. He joined us virtually on the program some time ago, and now we have the very smart McKinney in studio, and he's going to join us in about 12 minutes on the program. A lot of topics we're going to cover with Mark, including town status for Crozet, and should the evolution begin with Crozet pursuing town status. Schools in Crozet are populated, and some bursting at the seams. Is school overpopulation an issue as density continues to uptick in Crozet? We'll talk about infrastructure and roads. Really only two real ways to get in and out of Crozet. And I think all of us have experienced an accident on one of those two roads and the impact it can have from a traffic standpoint. We got to discuss workforce housing for Crozet, middle density housing in Crozet, and an update on the downtown Crozet project. Mark McKinney is going to join us. He's a Crozet Community Advisory Committee member. That's a mouthful. Can't wait to have him on set. Before we get to Mark, a couple topics I want to cover first. This is something I put on the network over the weekend, and it really started to go viral. Student athletes at Albemarle County High School are now being mandated by the school division and the school board and Superintendent Matt Haas to get fully vaccinated. Student athletes are required to become fully vaccinated by November 8th if they have desires to play winter and spring sports. I'll make that even more layman in talk. If a kid at Albemarle or at one of its middle schools or its high school, if they want to play sports in the winter, they want to play sports in the spring, school leadership is demanding that they be vaccinated. It's very straightforward. I had some questions for Dr. Matt Haas, the superintendent, and the Albemarle County School Board. Now, you guys know I've been vaccinated. You guys know that I'm pro-vaccine and pro-science and pro-innovation. And you guys know that I take the flu vaccine. You guys know that I have a little boy, and I'm very cautious, my wife as well, of his health. We're not anti-vaccine. We're pro-vaccine in our home. That being said, we have some questions, some legitimate follow-up questions for the school board and the superintendent's office that all parents should be asking of Albemarle County student athletes. The first question that immediately comes to mind: if Albemarle County is requiring its student athletes to get vaccinated, will Albemarle County also require all its students to be vaccinated? Is it just for athletes playing sports? Or is it the young men and women in geometry class, in calculus class, in U.S. history? The young men and women that are learning algebra, that are learning biology and chemistry. Is this a mandate for all students in Albemarle County schools? Or are they just cherry picking student athletes? That's the first question all parents should ask. Another question that parents should ask: Albemarle County, will it only play against other teams and schools that have fully vaccinated student athletes? For example, Fluvanna County High School does not have a vaccination mandate. Does Albemarle High School expect its student athletes to compete in winter sports and spring sports against other schools that do not have vaccination mandates or requirements? That is a legitimate question. We should know the answer to that. If Albemarle's school board and its superintendent, Dr. Matt Haas, if they say this: we will only compete and play against other schools that have vaccination mandates of their student athletes, then folks, that will dramatically impact the playoff and postseason landscape. You can't have a playoff or postseason if a lot of the schools don't have vaccination mandates, and some schools will only play those schools with said mandates. It's just not going to happen. That will alter the landscape of the postseason. Another question I think you must ask: if student athletes are giving exemptions to these vaccines, they have to submit a negative test to the nurse by 4 p.m. on Monday, starting on the 8th of November. If you do get one of those exemptions, and your family cannot afford the tests, remember, the tests are paid out of pocket by mom and dad, not by the schools. If you do get an exemption for the vaccine and you cannot afford the test, one a week, that are turned in at 4 p.m. on Mondays to the school nurse, what happens then? Is the young man or woman out of luck because their mom and dad cannot afford the test? That is a fair and legitimate question. And if the answer is yes, they are out of luck, how's that from an equitable or fair or social just standpoint? It's not. And finally, the last question I would ask if I was a parent of a student athlete at Albemarle County High School is this. If my son or daughter chooses not to get vaccinated, but would still like to play sports at the middle school or high school level, can my son or daughter transfer to another school immediately and play sports right away because of this vaccination mandate? Those are fair, honest, straightforward questions that if I was a parent of a middle school or high school student athlete, I would want these answers. And just because we're asking these questions does not mean we're anti-vaccine. It's just us doing our due diligence and getting the most information possible because it's our son or daughter's health that we're considering. It's our son or daughter's health that we're considering. And finally, I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm torn on this. I'm legitimately torn on this. Does a school division, does a school board, does a superintendent of a school system, should they have the power and the autonomy to mandate vaccinations of our children? Is that the school board, the superintendent, and school leadership's responsibility? Or should they have the autonomy to do this? A lot of people say, absolutely, Jerry. Absolutely they do. Just like they mandate a chickenpox vaccine and a polio vaccine, and the fact you need these proof of vaccinations to go to school each year. And that is a fair and legitimate argument. The counter argument, and I'm dotting the I's and crossing the T's on this, it's not a clear-cut answer for a lot of folks, and I'm empathetic for that plight. The counter argument is, well, the polio and chickenpox vaccinations have more study or data or a longer time to assess the positives and cons and potential collateral damage that come from vaccinations. And that is a legitimate counter argument, a very legitimate one. I think we got to be patient and empathetic because moms and dads, I know we are torn on this topic. We want our little boy protected. 100% want him protected. But are we going to do this until the FDA fully approves the vaccine? Probably not. Probably not. Be patient and empathetic with people as they ask questions that pertain to their loved ones. Please, everyone. All right, Mark McKinney in T-minus 3 minutes on today's program. Very excited to introduce you to this very smart individual that's to my stage left over here. Before we get to Mark, last topic, before we get to Mark, that Wake Forest UVA football game, what a letdown, man. I mean, our defense, this Virginia defense, is putrid. It is horrendous. They cannot stop the run. There is humongous holes in the middle of the field. Wake Forest is a pretty good football team. They're 4-0 and 2-0 in conference play, but they made us look absolutely horrendous. The Wahoos have Miami and the Hurricanes Thursday night on ESPN in their third straight nationally televised game. This Thursday evening, the Wahoos open as a 4-point underdog with the over-under at 62 points. Look, Brennan Armstrong, he can throw the football, and he's got weapons all over the football field. He's got a 6'7" tight end that I can assure you will play on Sundays in the National Football League. Okay? He's got a lot of talent on this roster and a lot of guys that can catch the football. But folks, until this defense gets figured out, Brennan Armstrong, Mike Hollins, Mr. Wicks, Mr. Woods, Billy Kemp IV, Rashawn Henry, Keaton Thompson, we may have to outscore teams to win ball games because our defense doesn't look like it can do much of anything at all. More on that topic after we chat with Mark McKinney on the program. Judah, let's go to the studio camera and then the two-shot, please, and let's make sure we get a good photo of this gentleman on set. First, good afternoon, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's been about 6 months since we last talked.
6 months, and I think the last time was via Skype.
Yes.
So this one is in person. I very much have looking forward to this interview. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, thanks. So again, my name's Mark McKenney. I've been living in Central Virginia since 2011. Actually, I think 10 years ago on September 24th, my wife and I PCS down here from the Army, where I've been since. We started out in Greene County, and then as we got to know the area and people, we always found ourselves out in Crozet, and 3 kids, a deployment later, we decided to move to a more friendly centric home and neighborhood, and that's where we have been since May of 2018.
Let's emphasize this, because we're going to have some real some real conversations here. You're a proud Crozetian. You love Crozet. Put that in perspective.
I love it. It is a beautiful, just beautiful little unincorporated town. It reminds me of where I grew up in New England, kind of the old New England Railroad going through the town, just the history that's there, being nestled in the base of the mountains. It's just beautiful. The communities, the neighborhoods, the people. It's busy, it's quiet, it's not too far if you want to go to either Waynesboro or Charlottesville or any other part in Albemarle. So I tell my wife probably every other day I love where we live. Wouldn't change it for the world.
This gentleman is a member of the Crozet Community Advisory Committee. For those that don't know, because I think a lot of folks don't know about this, explain what the Crozet Community Advisory Committee does.
We are members of a board-appointed committee, so there's no elections. Based on available seats, you submit your application to the Board of Supervisors, and based on how many applications and how the Board of Supervisors vote, you may or may not be on the board. There are term limits, and the big key piece is what's in the title of the board. It's an advisory board, so we don't have voting authority. It doesn't really go anywhere. We are designed to advise the county on kind of what we are seeing and hearing from a Crozet community aspect. It is separate from the Crozet Association. I think it's Crozet Community Association, so that is a separate entity. This is very county focused, mostly designed to help shape master planning and other issues, topics that come up from that.
Dude, you got on this committee like right at the hot time,
right?
When like all these topics were coming to fruition.
Yeah.
And it's important that you designated the differences between what you're on and the association.
Yeah.
Because at this past Crozet Advisory Committee meeting, you guys chose to ask the consulting group that's offering perspective on town status to not present to you guys.
Yes.
But the association instead.
Yes.
Why don't we start there,
okay,
and why that decision was made?
So again, this topic of becoming an incorporated town has come up over constantly. Really, I think over the past probably 6 to 12 months. It's actually a fascinating topic if you're a government nerd like myself. And,
we're geeks for this stuff.
Yeah, and you really dive into what the process means and the second and third order effects for businesses and residents. And I personally do not believe, as a board-appointed member, to host a public meeting on pretty much talking about understanding the process, the cost-benefit analysis, the second, third order effects of separating from the county. And when I use the word separating, when you understand the process, you're actually not separating yourself from the county. I just don't think it's an appropriate function for a public meeting of board-appointed members to discuss. Community associations, kind of non-public figures, whether you're elected or board-appointed, you have this conversation and host vendors and experts all you want. I just didn't think it was appropriate for the board-appointed members to discuss that.
I agree with you. We'll get straight to it. Town status.
Yeah.
Some of the pros, I'm going to outline. You outline the pros. You outlined the cons. Some of the basic pros: more autonomy for Crozet, more control potentially of destiny in the foreseeable future. Some of the potential pros: maybe you get a town manager fighting a little harder for things that Crozetians want. You get a little more city government or town government in place, a la what Scottsville does. Maybe you can get a mayor in place for a Crozet if it gets to become a town like Scottsville does. Scottsville's a great barometer for this. Some of the cons I see immediately are increased taxes. Some of the cons, I would think this is going to drive entrepreneurship and small business potentially out of Crozet.
Absolutely.
Because said taxes. You're the expert, dude. I'm going to learn from you. This topic is yours.
All right. So I've been diving my head into this topic since it came up, and really trying to understand what does this mean. And I've got 18 years of military experience. I'm a major in the United States Army Reserve, counting down the months to retirement. And I put a lot of that experience into this topic, and understanding if we do this, the county does this. All right, we call that wargaming. All right, if I'm looking at putting combat operations together in Baghdad, what is our enemy going to do? Now, I'm not implying that this is that situation, but the thought process, the strategic thinking is the same. And then as a leader, okay, which, Jerry, you're a leader in your business, all right? County government, everyone from the county executive down to the lowest staff level, you're a leader. And there's two fundamentals that you have to think here. One, doing things right, all right? We've got to do things right. Paperwork, the process, the planning, and so forth. The second piece, which I think a lot of people forget, or maybe they gloss over, is doing the right thing, okay? So now let's look at becoming a town. So yes, you would have some more independence, okay? But everyone's still going to be paying property taxes to the county, okay? So your property taxes aren't getting diverted to the town. It's still going to the county. Certain services the county would still maintain, such as schools, okay? Other services are now going to be put on the town, such as emergency services. Why would Albemarle County continue allocating other tax-paying resources, such as police, fire, and EMS, to the town of Crozet when you're now responsible for the safety, security, and the well-being of the 9,224 residents as of the 2020 U.S. Census, all right? So, yes, we're going to have, I think, a very small percentage of benefit, and that is you would now have your own ability from a planning commission side, land usage, okay? So this topic of becoming a town, I've kept coming back to one fundamental question that I cannot answer. What is the problem we're actually trying to solve, okay? All of this is about, what I perceive is all about frustration. It's stakeholder deterioration between residents, county government. It's frustration based on what I wrote in my op-ed, past, present, and future land use, okay? So by becoming a town, what problem are you trying to solve? By establishing a third layer of government, because that's what you are, because you're still going to have county government, you're still going to have state government, what are we trying to solve? What is going to be accomplished by that? And everything that I come up to shows me you're not solving anything, okay? We're just going to create more problems, okay? And when we create a town government and become an incorporated town, you have just, now I'm putting, and I went back to school and got a master's in public administration, so now I'm putting on a hat of that I am the town manager, okay? You have now forced me to raise revenue. And there's three ways I raise revenue: people, places, and things, okay? I'm gonna have to put a sales tax in place, most likely on top of what the county's sales tax is. So maybe it's 1%, 2%, 3% on top of what I think it's a 5% meals and sales tax. I gotta put a tax on people, so I'm gonna have to levy added taxes onto either property, personal property, machinery, and so forth. And then things, everything consumers buy outside of meals and sales tax. So the cigarette tax, you know. And
Scottsville's doing all this, guys.
right, you know, and I I tried to formulate how much would a Crozet town budget look like, okay? Because you have to correlate taxes to people, okay? And like Albemarle, I think 46% of Albemarle's budget is just generated from from property tax. 17% is from other local taxes, all right? That's a $467 million budget in 2022, and half of that's going to the school board. So I looked at 3 different areas: Gordonsville, Scottsville, and Waynesboro, all independent towns or cities, all right? And this isn't, and I'm not a tax policy expert here, all right? But I took the town city budget and I correlated it to how many residents, how many households are in that. Just because I want to present this to everyone listening, that, you look at Gordonsville, they've got a town budget of $5.3 million, with just the airport in Gordonsville generating $1.3 million of that revenue. So the rest of the town of Gordonsville has to generate $3.9 million in revenue. There's 1,600 residents in the town of Gordonsville, and there's 734 households. That town budget equates to having to raise revenue for every household equates to $5,400, and per person in Gordonsville, $2,400 in revenue, all right?
That's a good stat.
A town of Crozet is going to have a higher town budget than Gordonsville.
No doubt.
Waynesboro's got a city budget of $111 million. We're not going to get that high.
No.
All right. Town of Scottsville is $1 million. All right. We're going to be above that. And if we look at Crozet's population of, let's just say 15,000 people, I'm coming up with, on a conservative side, about $15 million in a town budget. I really think you're looking at 20 to 25 million when all is said and done.
Per year, guys.
Per year.
Yeah.
With the cost of inflation, it's going to keep going up. And as a town manager, I have to tax. It's the only way I can have a town budget. But it goes back to the question at hand. To become a town, you have to show, through the legislative process, what is the county of Albemarle not doing for the town of Crozet? What services are we not receiving that warrant becoming a town to provide those services?
And can you make a legitimate argument of any services?
No, I can't.
Can anyone?
That's
Because you're not in favor, and you've backed it up legitimately with great data and with facts and common sense. He is not in favor of Crozet becoming a town. What is the pro? It's density control.
It's density
housing
control. It's land use.
Yeah.
It's a little more independence, but you still got Albemarle County hanging over your head. All right. Albemarle County doesn't maintain the roads. They don't pay taxpayer money into roads. There may be some cost sharing with VDOT, but state roads in the county is VDOT's responsibility. All right. And I believe the program is called Smart Scale, all right? And that's how Virginia, VDOT, takes all this traffic data to figure out where and when do we have to allocate taxpayer money to the best rate of return for the taxpayer, all right? And that is the process to identify what roads, when, and where. Government is slow. I feel the frustration as everyone else does, okay? And I moved into Crozet in 2018, okay? I feel the frustration, but this is 20 years of frustration in the making. I think this all dates back to as soon as Crozet was designated a growth area, there should have been, in just my opinion, better kind of long-term strategic planning because, and I've talked with Ms. Malik, she ran, I think, back in 2005, 6, 7 timeframe because everything was just getting rubber stamped at the county. I remember her saying that. So she ran because of this influx of growth with no kind of...
Ann Malik is the board of supervisor. Her district, Whitehall, has Crozet within the district.
Yes.
So this topic is going to come up. We'll save that.
Yep.
Should Crozet have its own member on the board of supervisors? Because if you know the Whitehall district, Crozet proper and Whitehall are 2 very different places.
Yes.
We'll save that. Please finish your thought.
So she ran because things were just getting rubber stamped, and but she's one member of the board, one of 6. if she could vote no all day long and the other
Wouldn't
5 members keep voting yes, these rezoning applications, these developments, this and that, it's going to keep getting approved. Welcome to politics, okay, at local county level. I've had a lot of great conversations with Ann. She's wonderful. She has dedicated a lot of hours into the Whitehall district in Crozet. The second, again, going back to the topic of becoming a town, what I'm afraid what's going to happen is when we become, or if we started the process of becoming a town, you've just isolated yourself from Albemarle County, okay? Why, you as a business guy, why would you invest in maybe a sub-company if they won't start isolating themselves from your strategic plan?
You would not.
You're not.
Yeah.
So guess what? All these capital improvement projects that are in the pipeline that take years, one being the Eastern Ave Connector Road that Ann has worked diligently on for, God, 2 decades, decade and a half. You know, that's a $25 million price tag. They're working to get federal funding for that, you know, because it's so pricey. They're going to stop that. And guess what? That project now goes on to the town of Crozet, and we're on the hook for a $25 million road that's a mile long. And you've got a town budget of what, $25 million? Like, this just makes no sense. So I go back to, I'm trying to understand, what is the problem that you're trying to solve by becoming an incorporated town that isn't based on emotion, isn't based on frustration of past, present, and future land use? Because this topic being thrown around, I think it's deteriorating relationships. That's my opinion.
What percentage, this is a submission from someone who watches the show, and we appreciate you, Greg. What percentage of Crozetians are pro-town and against town evolution? I mean, this is just the back of a napkin.
Right.
Us spitballing for the sake of a talk
Right.
show.
Well,
is it 50-50?
No, I don't think it is. All right, so I think first off, you got 3 Crozets. You got Old Crozet, the pre-2000 population of about 2,500 people.
Let's call that the OG.
Okay. You got New Crozet, which is the 9,200 people that live in Crozet. Then you got Old Trail.
Yeah.
3 diverse sets of people coming from different areas with different concerns about the county.
How do you characterize the 3 demographics? OG first, the old guard. Post-density, against density.
I think they're against density. I think they're frustrated. They're angry because they saw a very, correct me if I'm wrong, because I did not see Crozet until 2011. All right, a very farm, open, quiet, no one bothers you, to 7,000 cars going down 1/2 mile stretch of road a day. All right, so I think they're angry. They're frustrated. They're pissed off. The county blew up the area.
Would you call them NIMBYs? Not in my backyard?
I think there are some. I think a lot of them just wish the county did things better.
Okay.
More strategically, diligently, methodically planned.
Okay.
Okay.
And the second group?
Second group is Old Trail. My opinion.
You're going to hold back here or you're going to air it out?
Old Trail is very affluent.
Yeah, so I mean, you're talking starting $500,000 and $600,000 homes. Now they're brand new.
Right.
They're on a post stamp
I think your cost is more than that.
Yeah, he's probably right. On a post stamp of a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like 0.1 and change.
Yeah.
I mean, over $1 million homes in Old Trail.
And it's not everyone in Old Trail.
No.
I have a lot of good friends in Old Trail. I think Old Trail is a nice nestled, kind of almost in a way, a gated community without the gates.
That's a good description.
But if you look at like the Nextdoor app, it's Old Trail complaining again, Old Trail complaining again. And again, that type of behavior, that type of, I think it just fuels the deterioration and the divide within Crozet. Oh, it's just Old Trail. Oh, it's just Old Trail. It's not everyone in Old Trail. There's great people in Old Trail, but it's like you build a home in a multi-zoned area for businesses, for commercial use, for townhomes, for apartments, for this and that. You move in there, you build a home 2 years ago. I'm sorry, but in my opinion, you bought a home in a multi-zoned area. Like, sorry that you're not happy that there's now a commercial building being put up across the street. It was all part of the plan. Like, you kind of have to do your own research, Jerry. You're gonna research other business opportunities before you make that decision.
For
right?
sure, for sure.
My wife and I did that when we chose to buy our home that we want to raise our family. We researched Crozet. I looked at the master plan. I looked at the downtown Crozet project. What is the future of Crozet? What am I moving into? So you have
and
that.
the third demo.
Third is kind of everyone else, and I think you have just a lot of.
You're in the third demo.
I consider myself in the third demo. You want things done right. You want things done the right way, for the right reasons. You want to solve these problems. You want to make your community better for the community as a whole, not just Old Trail, not just Old Crozet. It's happened. We can't change the last 20 years, so let's stop driving a wedge in between three demographics and actually solve and help solve a problem. But becoming a town, I think, is only going to further drive that wedge even deeper. You have an affordable housing crisis, okay? I was looking
Hugely.
at. So actually, I have a question for any realtors listening.
Please.
What, in 2020 or whatever stats you want to use, what is the average sale price of a single-family home in Old Trail? And then the rest of Crozet, what is the average single-family home price? Because I think that will help paint the picture of some of the divide that's happening here. Because I listened to you and Keith, you talk about the real estate market. Crozet, the 4.5 square miles, has a 3% poverty rate, okay? Albemarle County, 6.7, City of Charlottesville, 24%, City of Waynesboro, 16.8%, okay? So by becoming a town, and I'm going back into my kind of town manager role, I have to raise revenue. You've just made an affordable housing crisis 10 times worse because of the added taxes that you're going to levy on every home, thing, person, place, whatever. You just...
Taxes gentrify communities.
Yeah.
It's the thing that's not discussed, not nearly enough about taxing. Taxing expedites gentrification.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to embrace that. Keep going, Mark.
You know, look, I probably might get a lot of flack for this. I believe in taxation. You have to tax. We have a society. You have services. You have emergency services, school services, social services. You have to tax. And there's a balance between doing the right thing and doing things right, okay? So you have to tax, but how you tax, there's a moral aspect to that. And if we become a town, and if I have to raise $7,000 for every household that's in the town of Crozet, because I don't think there's not enough businesses to offset the tax on the residents, because you don't have Kohl's and Best Buy and Kroger and this and that, all right? So you got to tax homes, you got to tax people, you got to tax things. You're now just driving the affluent picture that people think of Crozet even worse, because now I can't even afford to live in Crozet. And I'm a pretty...
And you do well.
Middle of the road, blue collar guy. Like, if we became a town, I'd be putting my home on the market and I'd have to move because I can't afford those added taxes. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be in that boat. And then you've just further created you exasperated the affordable housing crisis that currently exists, that the middle density piece is trying to help solve.
Jonathan's watching in Old Trail. Has this comment for you. Guys, I live in Old Trail. Please cover this with Mark. Increased housing density means increased taxes for the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's more tax revenue for the county. That's more sales tax revenue. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. More density, more homes. You know, again, as putting on my public administration hat, I have to raise revenue. I have to, or else I can't provide these services. Whether you live in Old Trail, you're Old Crozet, you're in that third group, your house catches on fire, man. You want to press 911 and have those firefighters, or if your house is being broken in the middle of the night, you want to have an Albemarle police officer there right away. Like, you want your kids to go to school, all right? School capacity issue, you know, we'll get into that in a second, but that costs money.
Jennifer lives in Gray Rock. She has this for you. Jerry, pass this along to your guest. I live in Gray Rock, and I'm absolutely in favor of people having a home and a place to live. But having a home and a place to live at the point where traffic and schools are overpopulated is a concern for me.
It's a concern for me too. Again, I bought our home. I moved my family into Crozet in May of 2018. I did not start diving into this topic until probably the last 6 months when you and I started talking. I looked at it from quality of life, what do my wife and I want, what type of area do we want to raise our kids. The schools did play a factor into that. We were all over the county, from Advanced Mills to Keswick to down in the Scottsville area, looking on that kind of piece of Fifth Street and going in, and we were like, Crozet is it. It feels like home. But I think it goes back to, this is 20 years of frustration, of infrastructure frustration that is just built up, and I think it's culminated probably in the last 5, maybe a little more than that. You've got the Crozet expansion school project going on right now. I think that's a $25 million project that's going to be completed in August of next year. So I was looking, there's a...
More questions for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm trying to look here on the school piece. So, sorry, it's in my message. So right now, Brownsville's at 750 students, close to its capacity. I think Crozet Elementary is above capacity, all right? So this school project, this school expansion project that's going on right now is going to force redistricting in the Whitehall Crozet area. Right?
That's coming in now. So
yeah.
I'll throw this to you and then finish that thought. This is from Kelly. Jerry, I'm a mom of 2. My kids are going to get redistricted out of the school they're in now.
Mm-hmm.
The whole reason we moved to Crozet was because of the schools. And now we're populating them at levels that they're not performing with our expectations.
Right. So
is that fair?
That's very fair. All right. So again, Jerry, when you buy a house, you're looking at, I want my kids to go to this school. Now, again, I go back to my kind of town management, government side, that they can redistrict any day, whether we as citizens like it or not. Now, I believe they've just put together a redistricting committee, all right? So people need to get involved into local government. You need to listen to these redistricting committees, provide your comments, your concerns, this and that to that committee to shape the redistricting of Crozet. So once this redistricting happens, Crozet Elementary is going to go from 340 students to 600, okay? You're going to now offset Brownsville, because if without this redistricting, within 2 years, Brownsville is going to go from like 740 to like 900 kids. This is elementary school.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You know, so school expansions need to happen, but again, which school, that's, you know, Crozet versus Brownville, you know, that's welcome to school boards and county government and these types of decisions that people have to make. And you're not going to please everyone in government. You're not. You have to make decisions for the betterment of the community. And redistricting 2 schools is in the betterment of the community. Everyone's at or above capacity. You have to do something. I think we're a few years too late.
Definitely.
I think this project should have been probably initiated
15 years ago.
Yeah, 5-10 years ago is when it should have easily been completed, so we're not at the capacity issue we are now.
What about when these kids get to high school?
You know, I haven't looked at the high school numbers on the capacity. My kids are only in elementary. That's kind of where my focus has been. That feeds into the Western School District feeder pattern, because now you got Murray, Meriwether Lewis going into, and so you got 4 elementary schools, Murray, Meriwether Lewis, Crozet, and Brownsville, all feeding into Henley. And then that feeds into Western Albemarle. And I haven't looked at those numbers on the future capacity of those schools, but I think because of COVID, I think you're going to see this virtual environment stick around, because I think kids and families did succeed in virtual school. My kids didn't. My son was chewing pencils like dog bones. Had to get him back into school as soon as we could. So,
Lori has this comment for you, and this is in relation to the comment that was just put on the feed here. If we deteriorate the value of the schools, The Crozet community will deteriorate. It's the main reason we all moved here. Let's not forget that.
You know, I thought long and hard about that. That's a very valid point. I sometimes question, though, because of the picturesque community of Crozet, I still see it being a desired area. I don't see the town.
I'd say schools is the number one reason people.
Schools are the number one reason. Yeah, absolutely. Every parent wants the best.
I mean, they call Western Albemarle High School Stab West.
Yeah.
Because of how good Western is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sports program, educationally, absolutely. I think there's risk there. And I think as long as the school board and the county government manage the capacity and the growth, we won't let it get there. Eventually, there's not going to be any more land to develop on in Crozet. Eventually.
I mean, there's still a fair amount left in Old Trail.
There is still a fair amount left in Old Trail.
Which is shocking.
Yep. You still have some generational families that own multi-acres of land that, you know, family in New Hampshire. We've got family property that's been in our family for 100 years. We're facing a decision. Do we keep it? Do we let it go? There's going to be families down in the Crozet area.
And it could be subdivided?
It could be subdivided. It could meet the criteria of the middle density piece that the county's rolling out. Yeah, so there could be more growth. I believe the county's maximum projection population, and I'd have to go back to my files, and I can send it to you to post and share. I believe they projected a maximum capacity population of somewhere between 12 and 17,000 people in Crozet. And we're at 9,200 right now, so I think we still have another 10 years.
That's a massive delta there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a massive delta. A lot of folks are asking us to talk roads and infrastructure.
Yeah.
I touched on this briefly, and we all been there. I remember when I was working for the Daily Progress out of UVA, and I had to make it, you know, whether I'm covering Skip Hudgens' baseball team or Darren Maynard's basketball team, it's right in sports. And if there was an accident on 250, I'd be showing up at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
There was an accident on 64, you're showing up at halftime, because there's only two ways to get in and out of this area. So road infrastructure.
Yeah, that goes back to the VDOT piece. You know, the county can help steer prioritization of projects of importance, help drive the VDOT to do the data collection, but all of that takes time, and I keep coming back to, I think we're just 20 years behind the 8 ball here. If we start these data collections in these road improvement projects now, you're probably talking a minimum of 5 to 7 years before you would see ground broken on any road improvement project. I may be wrong on that because I don't get in.
Where would it even go?
So I know they're looking at doing a downtown, because of the downtown Crozet project, some of the revamping that's going on, that kind of Crozet Ave area in front of the library, they're going to do some projects there. There's a roundabout project on 250 and 240 right by the railroad tracks there. They're going to put a roundabout in there.
It needs it.
It does need it. I'm not too sure on other projects on the horizon, but listeners, I mean, you can go to VDOT's Smart Scale website and actually drill into Crozet and look at projects on where they are from a prioritization standpoint, a data collection standpoint, where they are in the solicitation for contracts to go out for them, and cost benefit analysis, and when they project to break ground. So that's an interesting tool. But again, the county doesn't get involved with road infrastructure. They can help, again, steer and prioritize projects with VDOT. It's much a partnership, but we're relying on VDOT.
George Singleton's got a question for you. Jerry, please ask your guest about workforce housing in Crozet, especially as we come to the finish line for the downtown project, finishing the downtown project. So the downtown project will create more workforce jobs. You know, jobs that we're often seeing,
Mm-hmm.
food and beverage,
Yep.
music scene, restaurants, retail.
Yep.
And George is alluding to the point that if we have new jobs like this in Crozet, where are the corresponding rooftops or beds going to be for people at this entry price point?
Right.
That's a great question.
Absolutely, and I'm trying to figure that out myself because I can't figure out where it's going to go. I mean, so the downtown Crozet project, I believe the Gazette wrote an article back in July on it, and I think I haven't heard otherwise, but it's looking at breaking ground next spring. I'm excited for this project.
I'm very excited.
I think it's going to be great.
They're going to essentially have a downtown mall in Crozet.
Yeah, it's going to be a mini Charlottesville downtown mall
Right.
out in the heart of Crozet.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. So to answer his question, I think you have to look at the housing crisis as a whole because it's beyond just this. It's beyond just these jobs. I think those jobs I could see your high schoolers working it. I could see maybe stay-at-home spouses.
Kids back from college.
Kids back from college, a spouse who wants 4 hours of a break from little terrors running around their house and get that mental sanity, or go make a few extra bucks, at a white tablecloth restaurant on a Friday, Saturday night. I don't see because of the affordable housing issue in Crozet, I don't see that type of, I don't see that worker coming out to Crozet for it because again, where's the public transportation?
There's none.
You have John,
Yeah,
which is
John,
a private
right.
entity. Maybe they reroute some things.
So that's
but
interesting. So your prediction, your crystal ball is, as these restaurants, these music venues, and these retail shops come to market when the downtown Crozet project is completed, you think that these are either going to be teenagers, high school students, or college students that are already living in Crozet at mom and dad's house, or a stay-at-home parent that's looking for some extra bucks potentially, because you cannot see it being professional servers or waiters, if you may, because where are they going to sleep if they're a professional server in Crozet?
You might have some of those who have maybe, again, I say, hey, maybe their spouse is the full-time breadwinner. They live here in Charlottesville, and they're driving out to Crozet Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. You might have a small population of those, but if they come out to work in Crozet, I don't think they're living in Crozet. The cheapest rent I've seen in Crozet, the View apartments, you're still talking like $1,300 to $1,500, $1,700 based on 1-2 bedroom size.
That's a good chunk.
You got the apartments in Old Trail that were built. They don't even list their pricing on their website. You're talking probably $2,500 minimum for one of those apartments. So again, the cost of housing doesn't correlate to the job. And now you put on becoming an incorporated town and throwing more taxes on everyone, you just made it 10 times worse because you can't come out of that from an affordable housing crisis.
It's a good
You just
take.
made it worse.
What about, and I'm hearing this term constantly now, middle density housing.
Yeah.
The Gazette did a piece on middle density housing.
So first off, I came onto the CCAC, and again, Jerry, I am not speaking on behalf of the CCAC. These are my opinions, my thoughts of studying these issues. The master plan projects were well into the works by the time I came onto the board. My input, my knowledge of the master plan is very limited because the work, the debates, the discussion's already done. What I do know, the middle density, designed to help solve the affordable housing crisis. Okay, because again, I'm curious what any realtor comes back with average sale pricing for single-family homes in Crozet and Old Trail are.
Is it with a 6? Do you have that number?
I don't have that number. That's why I'm generally curious because I think Old Trail, I think it's going to be a minimum of a 7.
I'll search the MLS now while you're talking, and we'll see active listings.
I think Crozet is probably a minimum of a 5.
So you think Old Trail is going to have a 7 in
I think
front of
Old
it,
Trail is going to
and
have
you
a 7.
think somewhere in Crozet is going to have a 5.
I think, yeah.
I think those are pretty close.
So, what were we just talking about here? Oh, middle density.
Middle
Middle
yeah.
density, again, so go back to the original master plan. They discussed affordable housing. And somehow in the development of Crozet, my conclusion is development took a turn from what the master plan had in it. The master plan did have specific units, percentages having to meet affordable housing criteria. Now again, that master plan was in place before I even moved to Central Virginia, so that's about as far as my knowledge goes on that. Now we're trying to catch up and we're trying to solve because whether you live in Crozet or not, there is a crisis, housing crisis. 3 years, I cannot afford my home anymore. If I were to buy my current home today, I can't afford it in just 3 years.
Nice equity for you and your family.
Great equity for me and my family, but I am completely priced out of my home. I can't do anything. Not that we want to do anything, but so middle density is proposed to put in 6 to 24 units per acre. Okay, and you can find that right in the master plan on the county's website. So you're not talking single family homes. You're talking whether it's townhomes, duplexes, bungalow style. That's designed to help get the affordable housing crisis under control. We'll see if that works because what land is available for that development. So, and beyond maybe the immediate downtown area, where are you going to put this stuff? All right, so. The county identified some land in Crozet that's currently owned by a generational family of Crozet, I will not name them, and said, hey, this parcel of land would meet the middle density plan, okay? That caused an uproar because I don't know if the county staff engaged that family. I'm a big believer in stakeholder engagement. You're not the smartest person in the room. It takes a group of people with diverse backgrounds, knowledge, experience to really solve these complex problems. But again, generational family. Their land has been in their family for decades, if not into maybe 100 years or more going on now. They have no intent to sell. So they kind of felt like they were put in a corner by the county that you're making this decision that's going to impact my family when we don't want to sell. And I agree with them. I'd be very upset if that happened to me. But from a local government standpoint, all the county did was say, this land meets the criteria. So if you ever sell it, we're just pre-planning that a developer could come in, someone could buy it up, and we're pre-planning to what can be done on that land. Again, they didn't engage the family. They caught them blindsided. I'd be very angry and upset if that happened to me. But it doesn't change the taxes that they pay. It doesn't change their current land situation from taxing to what they're doing on it or anything. It's just saying, in the future, if this family sells their land, here's what we're going to do. I'm sure it happened to a lot of farm owners. Old Trail was a big farm. Westlake, West Hall was a big farm. So when the county did their master planning, they may have rezoned those parcels of land of Old Trail and West Hall and Westlake and Foothill Crossings and Gray Rock to allow for the future development of that land. That's what happened there. So middle density, again, is designed to break the affordable housing crisis.
Do you think it will? I don't think it will. The cost of goods with new construction is so high right now. Fuel's going to continue to uptick.
Yep.
You talk to any home builder, and they're having a hard time finding subs consistently to go out and do a job.
Yep.
I learned from Keith, who I think is watching now, that 24% of a new home's cost is tied to red tape with local government.
All right, so that's 24% right now with Albemarle County. Now I become an incorporated town, maybe that's 38%.
Right, it's going to mean the new construction's even more expensive.
Right, so it goes back to, by becoming a town, it solves no problem. It is exasperated every current problem we are facing now by 10.
Okay, so here's then a natural follow-up question. For those that are pushing Crozet to be a town, perhaps the follow-up or a more pertinent question, should Crozet have its own representation on the Board of Supervisors? Ann Malik is your representative, Whitehall District. Crozet proper and Whitehall, extremely different places.
Absolutely. Different issues that Ms. Malik faces in Free Union, Earlysville, Crozet, Batesville, you name it. It's all different. I am a big believer in representation. I'm a big believer in local government, what the intent of it is for, in the sense of providing safety, security, the well-being from a community perspective as a whole. Do I think we need our own representative? I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think you make a representative just for Crozet. Again, you've just further isolated Crozet from everybody else. And that's part of what I think this problem is. It's Crozet versus everybody else. And I think by designating a specific representative for 4.5 square miles for 9,200 people, I don't think that's the answer. I think if you did anything, you break Whitehall up into two areas, a north and a south, and that south encompasses Crozet.
That's interesting.
But that's up to the Board of Supervisors. Like that's all part of redistricting and local government and population.
I've learned a lot about this with the election I'm doing. Say my district, the Scottsville district, I live in the Keswick side. And the Keswick side of the Scottsville district is very different than the Scottsville side, town of Scottsville side of the Scottsville district. And then you have the Mill Creek voting block. There's 3 voting blocks in the Scottsville district. There's Glenmore, there's the Mill Creek area, which is very reflective of the city of Charlottesville's politics and its ideology, and then there's the town of Scottsville. And all 3 cannot be more different than each other.
Right.
And it makes me nostalgic almost of the Whitehall district, because some of the folks that are deep in Whitehall, what they're looking for from Supervisor Malik is extremely different than some of the folks that are, say, in Old Trail.
You've got people in the Whitehall district that don't have broadband internet.
Right.
Don't have a cell phone tower. They don't have cell service out there. You know, the issues are very different. And you touched on 3 diverse backgrounds in your area. We talked about the 3 diverse backgrounds just in a 4.2 square mile.
Yeah, Crozet.
Crozet.
Right.
That doesn't encompass everybody outside of that. You know, you've got a sawmill down the road out of Crozet. And that actually leads into an interesting topic of, Keith brought this up, meets and bounds. We go down the path of becoming a Crozet. I go back to we isolate ourselves because now we're in an argument between the boundaries of the town of Crozet. If I'm a public manager, I want to maximize my town boundaries because that maximizes revenue from a sale perspective, okay? You got King Family Vineyards with Polo on Sunday, and that's a lot of tax revenue coming into the county from gas stations to local sandwich shops to just the sales happening there. You got Pro Renata, you got Star Hill, granted that's in the district of Crozet. So now it's a continuous argument with the county about the meets and bounds. What are the boundaries of Crozet? Because I want to maximize my boundary to maximize revenue to offset the tax on the people, all right? But the county wants to restrict it to maximize their revenue aspect and keep it there. But then again, we're just deteriorating stakeholder relationship with this topic.
You're good, man. Mark McKinney, guys, dropping some knowledge bombs. I want to get a recap of everything from you and a final word. Before we do, multiple moms are asking about school overpopulation concerns. This is something, when it's our kids, I have a 3-year-old, yours are older than me. You have 3 kids.
I have 3 with a 4th on the way, 6 days. So unless my wife texts me that she's in labor, which she hasn't.
Dude, your wife is a superhero. She's a superhero. Yeah. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
For the country. And thank you to Mrs. McKinney for 4 kids. Good night. She's a Hall of Famer. Give me some more insight, another take on this overpopulation of schools topic that is all over the feed right now.
Yeah, it all goes back
to... And he cares about this, guys.
I care about it. My kids, we live it every day. I mean, how many people remember what the first day of school was like in downtown Crozet? It took people over an hour to drive 3/4 of a mile to drop their kids off from school. And on top of that, you're now dealing with the bus driver crisis, It all comes back to growth. It all comes back to... I go back and I say this started 20 years ago. The day that Crozet was designated a growth area, which I am all for. I've got no problem with growth, responsible growth, managed growth, but me walking into this issue in the last year, moving to Crozet 3 years ago, I don't think there was good strategic planning beyond density. Let's put more people in because it's tax revenue for the county, which is not a bad thing, but it was just, I think hindsight's 20/20. I think a lot of things should have been done differently. And, we can review the footage, after the post game about what should have been done. And I actually, look, we got 2 great institutions in our 3. And I'm saying in our backyard with a mileage radius. You got Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU, UVA, and Virginia Tech, who have great public policy programs. If there is any graduate school level student out there, this is a great topic to study. What went right? What went wrong? How do we fix this in the future? okay? I think this is a great, Crozet is a great research project for a PhD level student.
I love it. Final question is a final word topic. Anywhere you want to go on anything Crozet related, with a fair amount of folks watching you here in 2 media outlets, clinging to Mark McKinney's words here. Final word.
Final word. All right. So put emotions aside. Let's stop thinking irrational. Let's look at this as leaders. Let's look at this as citizens. This is our home, our community. Our kids go to school here. We have jobs here. This is our home. Let's do things right, and let's do it the right way. All right? And let's do the right thing. And I keep coming back to the conclusion, we haven't defined the problem we're trying to solve, okay? But becoming an incorporated town is not solving that problem. We can do things right and go through the process the right way, through legislative process, and in 7 to 10 years, we're going to have the incorporated town of Crozet. But doing the right thing is different, because all that comes to is just we're going to overtax people, businesses, people, and it's going to break, and people are going to leave. And I keep morally and ethically coming back to the point, from an affordable housing crisis to the 3 diverse groups of people that live in Crozet, from old Crozet to new Crozet to Old Trail. This topic of becoming the town is not the right thing. I don't think we should continue talking about it, because I think it's further driving the wedge between the community, between the county. You have planning commissioners who are just fed up with Crozet complaining. But and I'm going to leave this with you, with your election, do the right thing, okay? People complaining, these are valid frustrations, very valid frustrations. Stop being hypocritical, okay? The Planning Commission has given the Crozet Park a hard time about green space. And my dad's a forester. My daughter wants to be a forester. I love the woods. I want green space. But it's very hypocritical to see the Planning Commission, go after the zoning packet to expand the park. We got 9,200 people here. We need a bigger park, all right, because of green space. When you see the Planning Commission approve zoning after zoning and clearing acreage and acreage of trees. So it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too here, man. You're willing to generate the tax revenue and clear out green space from a tax revenue perspective, but you're not willing to let a nonprofit in a public-private partnership expand the park for the betterment of the community, okay?
I'm going to give you props on that. That was good.
Thank you. So that's what I leave. Just, don't forget where you came from. Do the right thing, and let's do things right. And let's just come together for the betterment of the community to help shape the county in solving these problems instead of just arguing.
This is from Grace. Fantastic interview with this guy, Jerry. Thank you for standing up for Crozet and bringing to topic a lot of the stuff we're all thinking about here. And she also wants your take on you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but she also wants your take on the Albemarle County vaccination mandate of student athletes.
All right.
It's a slippery slope there.
Like you, Jerry, I believe it is a very slippery slope. I got the vaccine back in the spring. I'm in the service. It's mandated for me. I looked at, like you, the science, the data. My hesitation, especially for my kids, there's not a lot of years of research like you stated earlier. I believe in it. I also believe that people have the fundamental right to make their own decisions. And no one should be forced, coerced, or treated differently for the haves, the have-nots. And I'm going to leave it at that.
That's good. I feel the same. That was well said. Dude, we got to get you back, man. You're fantastic. We're lucky to have you on the Crozet Advisory Committee. Crozet is lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Seriously,
Yeah,
thank you. J-Dubs is going to get a picture of you right under this light here, and then we'll get you out that door. So, Judah, if we can go to the one shot on me, I'm going to dot the I's and cross the T's on a couple things. If you want to stand right under that light, he's going to get you, Mark. You did a hell of a job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mark McKinney, guys, fantastic insight. For those that are asking for the interview in totality, we will archive it on iloveseville.com, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Spotify, on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. We'll send it out in our newsletter, our e-newsletter that goes out to 100,000 plus inboxes every morning at 11 a.m. If you're not signed up for our e-newsletter, you can get it at iloveseville.com. We also archive all our interviews at iloveseville.com. So the vaccination mandate is something I want to touch on quickly. I started the program with this. Albemarle School System and Albemarle's school board and its superintendent, Dr. Matthew Haas, are mandating vaccinations for student athletes. If you want to play winter sports or spring sports, winter or spring sports at Albemarle, you have to be vaccinated. This mandate came out late last week, Dr. Matt Haas and the school board issuing this mandate. I'm going to say this again. I am pro-vaccine. I am vaccinated. My wife is vaccinated. Judah, our director, vaccinated. I believe in the science. I'm a data-centric individual. I'm a vaccine individual. Flu vaccine we get. We're going to do it this week, if not this weekend. I'm a vaccine guy. However, when local government, not even local government, when schools and school systems start making mandates of students, you start to get the hair on the back of your neck starts to stand up. We don't have a ton of data on vaccines in children. We don't. We all know that. Certainly not our littles, the under 12-year-olds, not a ton of data with vaccines in children. And when school boards and superintendents start making mandates and say, you will do this, there is no choice, you will do this, the hair stands up a little bit on the back of my neck. I think educating the populace and educating citizens about the value proposition of vaccines, I'm all for that. Having testing centers on site, I'm all for that. Being informative and explaining the value of vaccinations and what it can do from alleviating stress in emergency rooms and hospitals, I am all for that. I'm all for knowledge. I'm also for freedom of choice. I'm a vaccine guy. I encourage my friends and family to get it. But encouraging and educating and informing are very different than mandating and requiring and insisting and telling people to do things, especially when it comes to their body. All right, that's the show. Mark McKinney was amazing. If you care about Crozet and its future, watch the interview from start to finish with Mark McKinney. Crozet Community Advisory member. He was a rock star. For Judah Wickhauer, my name is Jerry Miller. This, the I Love Seville show, on a Monday, a glorious day to be alive in Central Virginia. Take care.